We're three docs talking about the breakdown. Cool. Well, you guys, thank you for joining me today. We're going to do a little bit of a podcast episode on protein, and we want to talk about basic stuff on protein that a lot of folks, I think, take for granted or they may not know. So first and foremost, I'm joined by some famous folks, Dr. Krissy Ladner. I always talk about you, Krissy, as being the trifecta. You've got a registered dietitian, you've worked in the hospital, strength and conditioning coach certified, and doctorate in sports nutrition, exercise leadership. Yeah. So really cool background. But I think of you as our sports nutrition expert. And we have Dr. John Heiss, PhD in biochemistry. Also an elite athlete, like I would say, maybe not me, but we've worked with elite athletes, and you are an elite athlete, John. What is cool about the two of you is that you've worked with people and you've counseled people on nutrition. So I want to get into protein. So let's first kind of kick it off with, there's a lot of talk in the media about protein. It's kind of trending. People are using a lot of it. People are reaching for it and going for it in the aisles and the stores. But I wanted to ask, foundationally, John, I'd like to start with you. What does protein do in the body? Like, what's the purpose?
Yeah, good starting point there. So I think protein, people think about it as like a food, right? I need to get protein in my diet. So it's certainly a macronutrient. But really in the body, it's like its entire structure of our body. So obviously it's muscle, right? Mostly people think of it as muscle, but it's also connective tissue. It's your tendons, your ligaments, but it's also even inside the cell. It's the cellular communication, all the enzymes and processes, and your cell wall has proteins in it. So it's all the little machines that are copying DNA and keeping us alive and breathing, and your brain is operating off protein. So it's not just muscle, it's kind of like everything inside of our body. It's the largest mass of our body.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah.
I mean, even like I would think red blood cells, white blood cells, like you said, enzymes, everything in the body. I always think of it as like the structural integument, like the connective tissue that holds everything up. Yeah. And people often think, well, is protein a fuel source? But it's not really a fuel source. It's really more for structure, integrity, and all the cells in the body, right?
Yeah, so it has calories, so it can be used as fuel, but your body doesn't necessarily like to burn protein as a fuel. It really wants to burn carbs and some fat. But it does have an energetic source to it. So yeah, I think that's
very cool. Yeah. Well, I think about, since you mentioned energy, I want to go to you, Dr. Krissy, talking about sort of like the functional, like the great things about protein. Like a lot of folks are on high protein diets for many years. I mean, 30, 40 years in the United States and around the world. And there's a reason why. And can you talk about some of the benefits of what protein does, like how it signals in the brain, or sort of like its thermic effect and what that might mean?
Yeah, no, I love the idea of the thermic effect, because you're right, John, like we hear protein and I think we immediately go to muscle and we forget all the other functions it does. But then we also think about how our body is signaling when we eat something, it breaks down. So there's something called the thermic effect of food. And when we have our three macronutrients, our carbs, our proteins, our fats, protein is going to be the most metabolically expensive, if you will, meaning it's going to take more energy, more calories to break it down.
That's cool.
So it's about 20 to 30%. And I like to tell my athletes, so if you had 100 calories of protein, it would take about 20 to 30 calories to process that. And that's because protein has nitrogen in it. Right. We don't like nitrogen just floating around in our body. So we have to break that down. We have to break up all the little amino acids. So we're putting in work to get the work out.
Just to digest it. That's amazing. I think that's a really important concept to just reinforce for a second. So if I have 100 calories of protein, let's say steak, and if I could get all the fat out of the steak, then I have 100 calories of like butter or oil, then I have 100 calories of sugar. You're saying if I consume those three, my body's going to have to work harder to absorb the protein. Almost like a metabolic tax that the body, in its infinite genius, just knows to do. Okay, that's amazing.
And because of that, that's where, so you might hear that certain foods are more satisfying or they induce satiety. So protein is that's one of the reasons. It's going to take longer to break down in your stomach before it can leave your stomach. And so all the different receptors, we call them baroreceptors, are the ones that feel the pressure in your stomach. Those are sensing protein a little bit longer because it just has more work to do there. Whereas like carbs will exit ideally quicker, but it really depends on the matrix of the meals, like what the meal is made out of.
Wow, that's cool. Let's get into the amounts of protein per day. And this has been kind of like tossed around. No one can really get a good idea. And look, people come in different shapes and sizes, John. Like, You guys happen to be lean, athletic types. There's some folks who are very large, maybe shorter. So can we talk a little bit about protein quantity in a daily sense? Like how much someone sort of should shoot for, and what's the right amount to sort of feed the body?
Yeah, for sure. I think when people ask me about protein, I get so many questions about, oh, what kind of protein should I take, or how much I have for this meal, or before or after a workout. And I think it's always best to remind people what matters the most is your total daily intake. Like I think that's the big chunk of things.
Hit the number.
Hit the number per day, whether it's from plant or animal. That's so secondary. You know, if you're a performance athlete, there's probably some nuanced gains to be had there. But you know, let's say my mom, I'm always like, Mom, you got to get 80 to 100 grams a day. So she's kind of a smaller woman, but I'm like, if you can hit 80 grams a day, that's going to set you up for health results. So I don't know if you want to go more on the breakdown there.
That's a great point, because historically the minimums were kind of set like around the world. You look at the World Health Organization, they're pretty low, right? It's like 0.8 grams per kilo.
Yeah.
What are those numbers, and why are they relatively like low when we think about those? Like,
Yeah.
what was the point of those numbers, I guess?
I think that's really like this minimum. It's meant to be like, hey, to avoid health consequences.
It's starvation. Like you do malnutrition, starvation,
Let's
right?
get in a bare minimum here. So yeah, the 0.8 grams per kilogram, definitely not something we kind of go off of anymore, especially clinically and in the research. We're seeing a higher amount, and we even have a higher recommendation now where it's going to look more closer to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram. But that's still an average. So like if I work with an athlete or somebody who's more active, or if they have a period of injury or whatever it be, they might even go up to around 2.2 grams per kilogram. So there's some wiggle room there, of course. It's individual.
So I want to put those numbers to use.
I was thinking in context. Okay, I always have tough time 0.8 per kilo. So let's break it down, maybe like total grams for like different size people. Maybe
210 pounds. Okay, proudly, right? So I'm about let's say
you're pretty lean.
Yeah, but I'm really 6'2", 210. So let's say I'm 95 kilos. Let's just call it 100 kilos of weight. So for the average guy who's about 220, who's 100 kilos like myself, according to your numbers, the government minimums, the World Health Organization, that means I would get 80 grams of protein. But that's super low is what you're saying, right?
Right. That's something
So
maybe
for
I
an
would
average person, that might be like 50 grams a day. That's kind of your like starvation level. So if I see someone who's having 50 grams, I'm like, you're eating enough to basically stave off malnutrition, but you're certainly not, I think, where we think
Not
the
thriving.
Ideal health, range is.
Right.
For sure. So based on what you're suggesting, Krissy, and I think we all appreciate and understand it, but 1.2 to 1.6 grams. So let's say a guy, someone's working with someone or just has got a family member they're talking to, I'm going to need at least 120 grams to 160 grams, and I'm pretty active, so maybe I'll dial that up even a little bit towards 200.
Yeah, for sure. And then thinking of age, gender, like there's little nuances that come in, of course. But yeah, so that would be, so if I were to calculate myself, I'm around 140, so I would be around 85 to 95 grams a day.
Minimum,
like thinking of activity level 2. So yes, it's so important to look at the individual and what they need. And I think it's so much easier, you're right, like not doing grams per kilogram, but thinking in a day, how many grams do I need? But then even more importantly, I work with so many people that maybe aren't as aware of what a protein source is. So like, let's familiarize ourselves. What is a protein? And then how many times a day are you eating? Because there's people that may eat 2 times a day versus 6 times a day. And so you want to spread that out throughout the day as well. So there's different ways to figure out how much you need, how you're going to get it in, and then when you're going to get it in.
I was going to jump in. You made an interesting point on, some nuances between different individuals. So I think guys that go to the gym, they're pretty attuned to, they know they need to get protein. They're probably taking protein supplements. They're generally hitting their targets.
Yeah, not deficient.
I find that the two groups that are not getting enough protein is typically women.
For sure.
Whether you're younger or older, let's say my mom's age, or I think like aging individuals as well, because they have a couple different reasons of like sarcopenia and loss of muscle. So I think, I think the message here is those two groups are the ones that have their antennas up of like, how am I getting 80 grams a day? And like you said, if it's only 2 meals a day, like,
Right.
are you going to eat 2 40 or 50-gram meals? That's actually difficult to eat that much protein in one sitting, especially for.
To bring up another great point, John. So you mentioned the term sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. I don't know if either of you guys want to kind of just explain in layperson's terms what happens when we're getting at to, let's say, like I'm 56, so I'm no spring chicken, but you're getting up to, let's say, 30, 40. We know peak 25 years of age is peak muscle and bone health, right? And then what happens? Can you guys talk about, like, to John's point, what's happening with muscle? Like, do we just keep our muscle till we're 120 years of age, or does it progressively decline? Like, what's going on there?
So generally what happens is people are losing muscle as they get older. The predominant cause of that is reduced activity. Think about when you're younger, you're out, you're doing stuff, whether it's playing sports or not, but as people get older, they're generally not as active. So there's this kind of natural loss of muscle. And we've talked about this, Luigi. You'd think it's a linear decline, but it's actually stepwise.
Right, kind of goes in.
Which I think is super interesting and what happens is that it's either periods of inactivity, maybe someone got injured. So now you're injured, now you're really not active for 2 or 3 weeks. And so you're gonna have a significant loss of muscle mass. And at that age, it's really difficult to recover because 1, you're not active to build muscle. That's a big signal. And then 2, you're not eating a lot of protein, right? So you get these like hits that are hard to come back from. So that's why that group is, I think, really, let's say, at risk for, inadequate protein.
It's really cool. I know we were talking earlier before we started recording, and I was mentioning to you guys, one of the legends in the industry is a guy, Dr. Bill Evans, well-known sort of muscle guy. I mean, he does a lot of stuff, but ran, I think, the Center for Aging at Duke for many years and published a ton of papers. But I remember he had presented to us many years ago and showed a paper on the number of motor units that they disappear around the age of 40, which is really when muscle, like, functionally really declines. So as you're saying, John, these step drops are pretty significant, and people just end up one day and like, wow, I feel about the same weight, but I don't have my strength or power.
Yeah, you're right. So you got this inactivity working against you, and then you've got this physiological mechanism working against you. So it's kind of a double hit thing. So it's really challenging.
Well, as a biochemist, John, I'd like to ask you, protein, there's plant, there's animal sources. Krissy was just saying you want to get into what is protein, where does it come from? Like, where do we get it from? Is it like rice, chicken, meat, fish, soy? Like, there's a lot of different sources. But on the biochemical level, is a protein just a protein, or are there different ways we absorb it? Or
So protein is a protein. Every living organism, every living cell has protein in it. Right, cell walls you got some fats and cholesterols in there, but you got a lot of protein. Right. So plants also have a lot of protein. Plants generally have more carbs relative to protein, relative to like a piece of meat, which is predominantly protein. So I think most people think you go to a restaurant, you're like, hey, what do you want to add for your protein? It's typically meat, but it could also be, soy-based products or tofu or something, which is a great alternative. So we think about that protein, and these are these structural units in the cell. And then when we eat these things, our body breaks it down into its constituent building blocks, which are amino acids. And that's really what our body's using. Is we don't, like, I tell people, if you ate a chicken heart, you don't just make your heart bigger. What happens
it doesn't go directly to the heart tissue.
So
I like that.
The source gets lost, but it gets broken down to its constituent building blocks. Think like bricks from a building. And then those bricks are used by your body to, okay, I'm going to add some muscle here. I'm going to work on some cell signaling here. So it kind of goes where your body needs it.
I like the chicken heart. I love that one. That's good. No, but it's a great point. And obviously there's different, like, speeds of absorption, but for the most part, if you're eating rice, fish, meat, you're going to absorb. The human body is very smart. It's going to absorb the protein it sees, right? And it's going to do a great job of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Krissy, having worked in the hospital, working with pro athletes, can we talk about protein timing? John earlier said, like, you want to hit the protein number, which I love that sort of philosophy. You wake up and it's almost like, I don't want to say a mad dash, but like you got to make sure your protein's in your breakfast and your snacks. But when you're working with someone or make recommendations, how do you spread that throughout the day?
Yeah, no, so usually I will start with, tell me what time you normally wake up in the morning. And then I jump ahead and I say, okay, what time do you normally go to bed? And then I know what window I'm working with, and we'll spread it out. So you want to try and have, you want to be eating just all food, all macronutrients, but specifically with protein, we want to make sure we're having it every 3 hours-ish. So I say 2 to 4 hours, making sure you're having a meal or a snack. And every time you eat, we want to make sure we're getting a protein source. And that's important because we're going to need this constant flow of amino acids, like John was saying, floating around in our blood. And your body's going to decide where they need to go, what they're going to do. But we don't store protein the same way that we store maybe a carb or a fat. It's more stored structurally. So if we are low on our amino acids, then our body's got to break down something we already have, thinking maybe skeletal muscle, in order to increase our blood amino acids or something like that. So we want to make sure that we're eating it consistently, but at the same time, it's not this, you said mad dash, like you're going to be okay if you go over 4 hours. Like, your body's going to be fine. Now, if it's chronic, if it's long-term and you're not consistently getting in enough, then you might see some deficits. But if you go a day or two where you just don't hit your goals, like your body can compensate. It's really good at that.
Right.
I think, there's some studies done that if you don't get protein in at breakfast, you kind of set yourself up to have maybe overeat on some carbs and things like that. So there's a little bit of like habit kind of work there. So, I mean, there's some physiology, but I think a lot of people, sure, I mean, the dream state, maybe you're having protein throughout the day. A lot of people, they might just do 1 or maybe even like 2 meals a day. Not a lot of people, but some people doing this like 2 meals a day. So then it's like you kind of really want to focus on getting 40 grams in those 2 meals, maybe for someone older, 50 and 50. So I'd say like the idea of having to constantly worry about protein throughout the day. Like, I don't know if that's almost like lost. It's almost like almost too much noise. I think it's like just hit that protein target.
Just go for it.
If you want to break it up, fine.
Right.
Because there's a lot of work on. I think in the past, there's this thought, I have to have 20 grams. And if I don't get 20 grams, it's a waste.
Good point.
And if I get more than 20 grams, like I'm going to not absorb it. So I think, science evolves. And I think there's a lot of misinformation of, you're going to waste if you get more than 20 grams.
Right.
I mean, there's a study came out, it was in 2025. We were talking about this in a Cell paper, which is like a prestigious journal. They give people 100 grams of protein at once. And they saw that muscle building happened. And muscle building is an easy thing to measure for, but it's thinking about everything in your body. But that actually happened like throughout the whole day almost. So
I was spread out. So it's that's a great point. So I love the fact that you're sort of like you said, laying the bricks, John, muscle protein synthesis, which you were also addressing, Krissy. I think, so you just kind of touched on one of the myths, the whole idea of 20 grams of protein. Before we get to that, and we're going to sort of like, I'd like to kind of close this episode with that, with some myth busting. But Krissy, I wanted to ask you one more question on combinations of things. Like some folks will say, hey, I want to have some rice with some peas or rice with beans.
Yeah.
Why do we combine different foods? Why is that recommended from a protein standpoint?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have all these different amino acids, and there's some of them that we call essential, or the more updated term is indispensable. Okay. They mean the same thing, which is our body can't make them. They can't figure out how to put them together, so we have to get it through food or through supplement. And so when we want to get all of these essential amino acids, as well as just all the amino acids that our body needs, we want to pair foods together that complement each other so combining rice and beans, they're going to have all of those essential in them.
Got it.
So that's why it's important. But you can also get, through mostly animal products, dairy, meat, fish, you're going to get complete proteins on their own where they have all of these together as well. So looking at the type of protein you're having is important. And I try not to overwhelm people with trying to figure out what amino acid they need and are they tracking it. It's more, do you have a varied diet? Do you eat different types of protein? Like John said, are you getting enough throughout the day? I think that's going to be most important.
Yeah, I think, if you're hitting that protein target, you're going to likely more than make up for any differences in any individual protein source. If you're having, we kind of joked, like if you're having only collagen protein all day, that's really bad because collagen's low in some really critical amino acids. And so that's why you want to diversify.
Right, get the variety. So I like the brick building, sort of like if I'm thinking of building a house, you're going to need a variety of bricks. Although those bricks are, let's say the protein, but you need different types of components to make up the bricks so that you can really build a complete house. I'm just going to go with that.
That's a great analogy.
Go with that.
Yeah, I like that.
So 2 myths I want to bust before we close because I'm really appreciative of your time. And I do want to have another episode with you guys so we could talk performance nutrition and protein.
Yeah.
But so one is the myth of, I'll go to you first, Krissy, on this, is when I was in medical school back in 1995, back in the Stone Ages, we would say, too much protein, you're going to damage certain organs. It was like, we were super conservative on protein because we just didn't really know about it. And I think the studies have kind of borne out like that you can kind of dial the protein up. So what are your general, like from a clinical perspective, recommendations on having more than the sort of the government minimum on protein?
Yeah, I mean, I see it so often working with athletes where maybe they are really focused on protein to the point where they're getting in much more than they need. And so historically, back in the day, as you said, we might be having...
And I was in school. Yeah.
We might be having much more than we need. And the thought was, okay, our body breaks down protein, turns it into ammonia, that turns into urea. So these are like toxins, if you will, in the body if they get too high. And our body has a system for that. It has kidneys, and it knows how to filter that. And if you're getting in enough fluids, right, if you're taking care of your general health, your body's going to be able to excrete that, and it's not going to have this crazy damage that we once thought. So
that's a great point.
It's
awesome.
It's going to be okay.
Right.
And of course, if you have like medical concerns, right, you go get that sorted out. And as long as you're not having wildly high amounts chronically for like years, you're going to be okay having a little bit higher protein.
That's awesome. Well, then the second myth I just wanted to dispel, because John, you already touched on this, is the idea of like 17 to 20-ish grams is really the maximum that you can consume and absorb in one setting. But clearly, as you touched on, we can get more than that. Is there any science, some research papers that really kind of have explained why we can go higher than that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the original thinking, well, I think the misnomer thinking is you somehow excrete protein, but we don't observe amino acids or intact proteins, in our excrement here. So we don't know it's not just wasted.
Right.
We see, if you have excess protein, it could get converted. It's going to be used as energy, so it may not be as efficiently utilized for building. Again, muscle's kind of a proxy thing, but let's just call it all structural membranes in the body. But yeah, I think, again, think about hitting that total day intake from mixed sources. That's going to ensure you get enough amino acids. You're going to get a variety of amino acids. That's like the 99% of the benefit. And then if you want to start worrying about, should I have whey or plant or like that's kind of the 1% difference. I mean, I think that's kind of the hierarchy to think about it.
Very cool. Yeah. I like it. I think, I was joking with you guys earlier. Years ago, I'm not going to mention any companies because we're going to wrap right now, but there was a protein shake that was like in the market. This is like 20 years ago, and it would be 50 grams. And they called it the 50-gram whatever. And I always thought, this is ridiculous. No one's absorbed. You're probably going to absorb 15 to 20, and the rest you just void out, or you just use it for other types of tissue, maybe converted. And so now I think the research is borne out. You're actually, the body's really smart. It utilizes so much of those amino acids, so it's very cool.
I think my protein shake every day is probably 45 grams protein in the morning. Yeah,
35 to 45.
Right.
How about you? About the same?
I'm like a 25-30.
25-30-ish? Okay. But I think the idea is that what you guys are saying, one of the take-home points is we can dial it up above 20. We can go up to 20, 40, 45 to 50.
Absolutely.
And we will absorb those amino acids. Very cool. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, you guys, this is amazing. Thank you for the talk on foundational elements of protein. We'll maybe talk again about protein as a sports performance enhancer and why it's important. But I think this was great. Thank you, Dr. John Heiss, Dr. Krissy Ladner.
Pleasure
Luigi. Talking to you guys. And Dr. Luigi Gratton here. We'll wrap it on that. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
Good seeing you. We're three docs talking about the breakdown.